meeting to order. Good evening. Welcome to the June 7th, 2022 meeting of the Dover-Sherborn Regional School Committee. My name is Interim Superintendent Kathleen Smith, and I call this meeting to order at 6:35 p.m. We are pleased to hold this open meeting in person at Dover-Sherborn Middle School, and we are also live streaming with DSC TV for those who wish to view remotely. Please also note that this meeting is being recorded. I want to start this evening by welcoming our newest member to the region, Mark Healy.
Thank you.
So congratulations, Mark, coming from the Dover School Committee. And again, I've worked with you. We've done a lot of great work this year, and so pleased that you're joining this wonderful committee.
Thank you very much. Same here.
Very, very good. What I'd like to do to open this meeting is to ask for nominations. What we're doing, everybody, is we're reorganizing at this point after elections have been held in both Dover and Sherborn. So we are reorganizing, and I would like to call for nominations for the chair. Do I have any nominations?
I would like to nominate Maggie Sharon.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Maggie, you voting?
Oh, aye. Reluctant.
So that is a unanimous vote. Congratulations to our new chair, Maggie Sharon. Maggie, I'm going to hand it over to you for the next.
Sure. I'd like to entertain a motion for nominations for vice chair.
I would like to nominate Judy Miller.
Do I have a second?
Second.
And any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That passes unanimously. And I'd like to take a motion, write a motion for nominations for secretary. Kate,
I would like to nominate Lynn Combs.
do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Angie Johnson. Any discussion? Lynn, are you willing?
Well, you'll just wait and have to see it if I vote.
You're not
All in
objecting
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great, passes unanimously. Thank you.
It's always close to the computer.
Right.
All right. Thank you, Lynn. All right, waking up the computer. At this point, I would like to take an opportunity for community comments. And as we know, community comments are an opportunity for members of the community to be heard. Before we move through the rest of the preamble, is there anyone here who would like to make a community comment at this time? Okay, hearing none, we will move on to the next order of business, and that is to examine, hear from our auditor on the audited fiscal year 2021 financial report. And
so I'm pleased to have with us tonight Bob Brown, our auditor from R.E. Brown, and also I think for the first time in person, our treasurer, John Flesh. So I thank them both for being here, and I will turn it over to them just to give a brief presentation. You did have the financial statements in your packet, a lot of reading material, and so if you have any questions, we've got two experts here that can answer those for you, but I'll turn the floor over to Bob to just sort of give an overview.
Okay, what would you like me to?
Yeah, you can just stand. Yep, that's good. Or sit down, whatever you're comfortable with.
I like to sit.
Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So we performed the fiscal 21 audit for the district. Due to the COVID situation, the district received quite a few extra grants during fiscal 21. If you go over $750,000 in spending, that kicks in an additional grant audit report. You did not meet that this year. There's a possibility that could happen for fiscal 22. So we did not have to do that. Among our 17 or 18 town and district clients, we added a dozen single audits when we were only doing 3 or 4 before. So it's kicking most of our clients into that bucket, creating a lot of extra work as well. The financial statements they're on a generally accepted accounting principles basis, so they're full accrual and rather condensed. I like to point out the budget statement, page 16, because the district lives by its budget. And so I view that as the most important statement for use from an operations point of view, how the district did for the year operationally. Overall net revenues were about 39,000 higher than budgeted, and expending was 1 million less than budgeted, for a net plus of 1,000,001 for the year, which, as you know, contributed to the E&D that was certified later. On the full accrual basis, the biggest change was in the post-employment benefits liability, unfortunately. They lowered the discount rate and also changed some of the actuarial assumptions for medical costs in the future. So it raised the post-employment liability significantly during the year. I know the district's been working hard to address it, and unfortunately those factors went against not only the district but other governments as well. You know, when they bump the medical estimates up, it affects everybody. Dawn and her team do a very good job. There's no management letter to issue regarding any internal control issues. And there were no audit adjustments either. The town does a good, district does a good job, and is a good client, and the report is a clean audit opinion as usual. And we look forward to next year.
Couple of months, we'll start the next audit. Any questions for Bob or John? I know Judy and Maggie, we worked so hard, it did bum me out about the OPEB, but you know, it's actuarial assumptions that are beyond our control. The next go around, it's swing around, but they're estimating people are going to live longer and it's going to cost more. So, and the discount rate went down mainly because of the bond yields on bonds had an impact on that. So we're heading in the right direction. We're funding. You know, as we start looking at our OPEB trust fund, though, we've, you know, as everyone looks at their market, we're losing a little bit, but at least, you know, we're there for the long term.
Yeah.
And that's how you have to look at it. It's just sort of sad to see that we're, I think if you look at your revolving, your statement for your special revenues, you're going to see that although we contributed $200,000, we're not seeing the $200,000 pickup because of some of the losses that we're having to record. But I think we did great work, and it's only going to benefit both towns as we let this roll out. So
It's a long haul investment.
exactly.
Any other questions? Mr. LaFlesh, anything
Well, I just,
from having an opportunity to sort of get in the works this year that
Right.
you want to make a comment on?
yeah, the only, I do want to comment, and I think Bob mentioned it briefly, but the outstanding work of Dawn and her staff. It's the most professional staff I've run into over the 38 years that I've worked in this, both on the municipal side and on the school side. And, you know, the amount of activity that's flowing through that office, not only for the region, but for the other two school districts. And to come in every other week and you know, perform reconciliations, and all the details are there, you know. And it really is a superior team up there. And we have a new person who's working the accounts payable, and she seems to be doing a wonderful job as well. But it's been a pleasure to be part of the team, and I hope to be part of the team for a long time.
Well, you are further down on the agenda to be reappointed tonight, so.
I'll leave so nobody feels any pressure.
Thank you. I feel like that's the part of that whole aspect of the school district that people do not see or oftentimes appreciate. And without all of this running very smoothly, we can't do any of the other things. So thank you.
Perfect. Thank you both for coming tonight.
Thank you.
And the Pike is not busy, so it's not a problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Good evening.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have reports from the superintendent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This evening, I'm going to be short, but I do want to call out a couple of things. And interesting enough, I shared this with the Dover School Committee also recently. And what I want to say is we do have an upcoming meeting next Tuesday evening, the 14th of June. And that is a joint meeting of our 3 school committees. And we have a really hefty agenda. So I want to just briefly touch on that. But before I do, and I know Principal John Smith is going to be sharing with you what a wonderful evening we had last Thursday with graduating 165 seniors. But I have been to my share of graduations, and this one was especially special in just watching your student speakers were second to none. It was amazing to hear them, again, talk to their fellow graduates, to also share thoughts about their classmate, Owen Bingham, whose mom was in the audience. It was just a superb job, and I wanted to thank, as I did that evening, Principal John Smith and Assistant Principal Ann Deborah Keegan and all of their staff, for putting on a wonderful graduation, for supporting these youngsters through, we all could say, a challenging year, but this was really a difficult year and a wonderful, wonderful ending. Thank you to Maggie and Kate, who gave out every one of those diplomas. And I know John will be able to fill you in a little more, but I wanted to at least start with that. As I say that, your 5th graders are preparing to come up here to the middle school we're sitting at to start their experience at the region. As Principal Reineman said this evening at their meeting, there's a lot of tears, but there's a lot of excitement. Same thing for your 8th graders. There's going to be a new transition type ceremony. Actually, it will take place outside around the middle school, leading to the high school, where Principal Dr. Tiano will lead the students, and I believe that's on the 17th, this Friday coming up,
That is.
over to the high school to be greeted by Principal John Smith and his team. Parents can watch, can celebrate those types of transitions. I want to remind everybody, I know I don't have to, that the last day of school is coming up on June 22nd. I want to remind everybody that on Monday, June 20th, it is Juneteenth. It is a federal and a state holiday, which we will celebrate. There will not be school, and we have a full day on the 21st, Tuesday, and a half day for the students on the 22nd, which will start our summer vacation. What I also want to talk about is we also have a final training coming up this Thursday evening, June 9th, which is, again, I want to compliment you on the hours you have put in for professional development this year. We started sometime in late September, early October. I believe we've had 5 sessions anyway. We talked about finishing up with your superintendent-elect coming on board to look at setting superintendent goals, to look at the evaluation process. Dorothy Presser will be here on Thursday evening from 6 to 8 to take us through that process. And again, Superintendent-elect McCoy will be able to work with you this summer to be able to set her goals for the upcoming year. And finally, I said I would talk about the joint school committee meeting coming up, and it's a little overwhelming to look at everything on there. So I just want to say to the public and to the region, we have the equity audit findings update coming up, and actually, their draft of their final report. We talked about that when I was first introduced to you just a year ago. And I came to that meeting to be introduced. You brought NYU forward to talk about what they would do this year. So they followed their timeline, and I know we're very excited, to hear their findings and know that there's a lot of hard work ahead. We also have the central office organizational study. That was brought about when we had a retreat with myself as the interim superintendent and talked about some of those, I always call them big rocks. This was one of the big rocks. We talked about looking at HR processes. I had asked about looking at your organizational structure at the central office, and some of the reasons for that is you have few people doing a lot of jobs. So I do have the report in hand. We're preparing for a presentation at the joint meeting on the 14th. We also have a communications update. We are struggling, as you can see, even this evening, trying to get some of the work done. There was a survey that went out to parents, so we are going to be sharing some of that information. None of it is really a surprise. We're going to be preparing our so-called district report card progress report. We'll be sharing, and again, I think this is a blueprint for going forward for years to come. I only see it growing, getting better, really kind of figuring out what are the priority things we want to include. Thanks to our principals, our administrative team who put together content, pictures, statistics. So we're really excited about hopefully pulling this together. Also, there'll be a final newsletter. One of the things that the survey talked about was from the superintendent's office. They always hear, of course, from their principals on a very regular basis, their teachers, but they did want a district-type newsletter. So that'll be, again, an inaugural, but handing it over to Beth and her team. And also, we're pleased to tell you we did have Final Site in, our partner with our website, our provider actually, talking about something that's been on your agenda for a long time, which is updating our website. So I'm pleased to tell you all of that is happening. And as I say that, I said to Beth, it's a lot on her plate coming forward. We're also going to have a video presentation with letters from third graders from Pine Hill School talking to us about the possible renaming of one of your holidays. So I won't steal their thunder, but that will be part of your joint meeting. And what I do want to say before I finish up is most importantly, we talk about safety and security, and we were really pleased as a team. We had been talking about it all year long. We would get ready to do drills. We felt, and we never felt like, COVID was behind us, but at some point we felt we could focus on it. And every time we thought we could do a drill, we could do trainings, Omicron appeared, and it became difficult to do those things. So I am pleased, and with Jason Brennan from Synergy, who you contract with, we did trainings with all of your staff, whether they were new staff that were being retrained. We did drills and actually took part. I went into a room, took part on barricading, what it would mean in a classroom with double doors, what is the inventory that we need in our classrooms to make sure that we are able to respond in case of an emergency. We do this throughout the whole district. We work very closely. Today, as a matter of fact, my team here met with your police chiefs of both Dover and Sherborn, who have been wonderful partners. I have every faith that their training and their support for us will, again, continue to improve. I know Principal Smith had talked about inviting the new chief from Sherborn up here to really go through the high school and to be able to, see the structure and understand the doors and the entrances. And so I say this because I had a couple of parents reach out. We have had a lot of things that we have watched. On May 14th, we watched in Buffalo, really a hate crime. 10 people out shopping for the day. I'll save the school for last. A week ago, we see a hospital setting. 4 people over somebody, again, mental health issues, disgruntled. And when you talked about the Uvalde school shooting, and we struggle, do we continually send messages out? What we have been doing is making sure when something happens, we reach out to the principals and say, do you have the resources that you need for your teachers? And this is really an area that we're all going to have to work on. The training of our staff to make sure that they can lead discussions with all ages of children to see how children are feeling. Are there kids that are going to need extra support? Are there others that want to know, is this a safe place to come? So that's a heavy lift. And my suggestion going forward next year is to look at having parent academies where we bring parents on board and we talk about some of the curriculum we're researching and the support that we have for our students so everybody understands. When it came to the Uvalde school shooting with, again, 19 children, 2 of our teachers, and we watched that unfold, it felt at that point that we had to reach out, obviously, as a school district, talk to our parents. I know my team was out, as were our administrators. That very next morning, I called both police chiefs. They were at Pine Hill. They were at Chickering. They're usually directing traffic, but they were out of their cars. They were, talking to parents, to children. It was a very routine day. Kids got into school. We were able to, obviously, I don't want to say business as usual, but again, we have really strong partnerships, I think, with all of our families, our law enforcement, our community providers. So we'll be able to talk about that. I want to do that at the joint meeting because I think it's important, again, to remind people they can go back and watch that presentation by Jason Brennan at Synergy. It's not that we have all the answers, but we continue to look at our so-called buckets and our inventory to make sure in every classroom, you know, if you do need to make a quick decision, and they talk to us about 3 minutes, that with the training with all our local police departments, which respond, if it were obviously up at the region, you know, Dover, it's a little complicated with different counties, different regions, but they have it down as to who the first responders are. And they talk about 3 minutes for our staff to make the best decisions that we can as to how we protect our youngsters. So I want to close with that, but I just want to, again, you know, share with the community that I think you have done an excellent job and will continue to improve and continue to look at our practices. And that is my report.
Thank you, Superintendent Smith. It's serious and sad, and also thank you for all the work. Principal Smith?
Thank you, Ms. Sharon and Superintendent Smith. So as the superintendent said, last Thursday, we had the culmination of our senior events with the graduation. The weather cooperated wonderfully, which was great. It was actually very, very comfortable, which was nice. Student speakers were absolutely fantastic. We work with the declamation speakers are actually students that apply to speak, so it is certainly an honor for them. And the class president will also speak, and faculty members work with each of those students on revising and talking about their particular speeches to ensure that it's inclusive, that it touches upon and has a message for all. And I think those kids just did a fantastic job. I think that they were poised, you know, they were positive, and while at the same time, I think they also acknowledged their friend Owen, our friend Owen, and it was a really nice tribute. So I was certainly very, very proud of the students. We had a wonderful awards night a couple nights before that where a number of kids received recognition. We have moved to a sort of a different format for our underclassmen where we do present them with awards, but we do it through the teacher, which through Challenge Success and talking to some other schools of ways to be inclusive and not have kids feel as though they are not being successful. We thought this was a better way. And the teachers personalize it by sending a note to that student or students. So we still recognize them. So I think that was really, really positive as well. In my report, you noticed one of the things that I'm really pleased with are some of our new hires. We have 2 new math teachers coming on board who I think are going to be absolutely fantastic, innovative, a lot of new, fresh ideas. Just today, I spoke to a couple math department members who are looking at the bookend course to the financial literacy, which is really exciting, and that will, you know, take place the following year once we go through academic standards and then ultimately put it on your desk for your review and hopeful approval. Just about an hour and a half ago, I received a call from our computer science candidate. He has accepted, so that was fantastic. We have completed all of our major hiring before the school year is out. So thank you to central office and to Dawn and to Kathy and Beth for all of your efforts in allowing us to get, you know, out in front of these important positions. The pools are definitely smaller, you know, in education, some smaller than others. Computer science and mathematics are challenging to fill, but we really have been able to get exceptional people. Each of these people came in and did a demo lesson with our students, with administrators, with teachers, in addition to the rigorous application process. So we're really excited for that. We will probably still have to hire some additional educational assistants. Sometimes people move on. We're really excited. 2 or 3 of them have actually gotten teaching jobs. That's what you want, right? I mean, we'll miss them, but you ultimately want your educational assistants, if they wish to continue to move up, and many of them are doing that. So Steve Goodwin, Kate McCarthy, Ann and I will work on filling those gaps, but at this point, barring any other unforeseen changes, we have our faculty intact, which is great. I can tell you that a lot of my colleagues in other high schools will be going well into August, searching for people. That's a tribute to this district. That's a tribute to the kids that they get to serve. It's a tribute to the quality of life that you can have as a teacher here in the Dover-Sherborn district. So I'm really pleased about that. We do have a few more events that are taking place. This coming Friday, we have our book awards, which are really a nice event for some of our juniors. And we have our final exams coming up next week. And it'll be really the first time we've had them in a couple of years because of COVID. And, we've already done a lot of work to reduce the percentages, to sort of reduce some of the stress. But we do think, on the other hand, it's still a good practice. So it's balancing, once again, the rigorous practice of giving students an opportunity at a longer exam without it being so high stakes that students' grades are being altered in a large part because of that. And then after the exams, which we've kind of already started, we'll be moving forward to next year and starting to think about that. We had a couple students come in today who are going to be transfer students from other schools, and they're starting to take their placement exams to kind of see where they are. Rob Williamson and Ann Keegan have already begun the schedule for next year. We feel that that's in really pretty good shape as well in terms of where we're going to land class size wise, numbers wise. Once again, thank you to the Regional School Committee for your support in allowing us some additional FTEs. That's going to really enable us to keep our class sizes at reasonable rates and provide the outstanding education that this community expects. So with that, I will open it up if there are any further questions. It has really been a great end of the school year. I certainly will miss a lot of these seniors, but I also feel as though they are more than ready for the next set of challenges. And a special congratulations to Kate Potter and Maggie Sharon, who both had graduates this past Thursday.
Comments or questions?
I just want to echo what Superintendent Smith said. My daughter graduated in 2020 with Lynn's daughter. So we had the COVID graduation, and I felt at the time that for what we had to work with, you all did an amazing job. But I didn't realize till a couple weeks before this graduation I hadn't been to a DS graduation, like a typical one. So it was wonderful. I agree, the student speakers were amazing. The music, it was so fun to be a part of that. So I was going to send you an email, but I hope you share with your team just how grateful my family and I were, and also as a school committee member, I just thought it was great. And with a lot of hard things going on, it was beautiful.
Yep. A lot of people put a lot of effort in, and hopefully I was able to recognize a few of them, but then there's so many pieces that, it does take a village to get a class to graduate. So thank you.
Everything that Kate said. Thank you so much. I've been fortunate to have 3 kids experience kind of a typical graduation, and also been to many, many other graduations, and it's just one of the things I'm really proud of. How we organize graduation, how we spread the love and recognize a lot of kids, how it's not just always about the top academic performers, and hearing the student speakers especially is really profound, and you really remember what they have to say. So thank you. It's clearly a gigantic project, so really, really appreciate it. All right, Dr. Tiano.
Thank you, Mrs. Chair, members of the committee. As you hear, this is a busy time of year, as it always is. Come June, we're looking to finish the year very strong while we're preparing for next year. And while we've always had a balance, providing for what everybody needs now to close the year and for next year, it's also, we're focusing on being sensitive and understanding that times of transition are difficult and different for students, for staff, and for our families. Particularly this year as you have a new school administration coming in. David Lawrence was here today, your new middle school principal. He was here interviewing assistant principal candidates along with members of the team. And while we know he will have a great team, with some changes, there are some trepidations. So Mrs. Hurley and myself are working diligently with Mr. Lawrence, providing him with, we have a shared folder for documents so that he can get a leg up on the nuts and bolts of everything from scheduling to handbooks to MCAS to everything that happens here. And he's been a great partner with that. Not only working with the administration, but also ensuring that our school will be off to a great start next year. As this has been a year of transition, you've had a new principal, or you've had two principals this year, if you will, and with COVID, new schedule and so forth, really working with our curriculum leaders and our team leaders to ensure that we continue the good work and the progress that we've made under Ms. McCoy's guidance and the district's guidance, both academically and socially, and it's reflected in our school improvement plan. But also, too, to have a solid foundation for those technical tasks. So when Mr. Lawrence walks through the door July 1, our goal is to have the scheduling done, the room assignments done to the very best of our ability. Typically, there's some tweaking over the summer and so forth, but as we're walking out the door, we want to leave it in the best shape possible. Updating our handbooks from faculty, student handbooks, academic, making sure there's consistency in the expectations. Our team's been, this morning, there was 12 of us in that conference room, and that is the busiest conference room I've ever seen. We have mapped out, or they have mapped out, the first 3 days of school, ensuring that when they come through the door, all of our teachers are on the same page, all of our students, and providing the concrete expectations for our kiddos that you would imagine in terms of lockers, Chromebooks, reviewing handbook and so forth, and scheduling our D1A advisors and students being in person, being able to provide those presentations so that our students next year can hear from their peers, if you will, what the expectations are. But more importantly, using those 3 days to really make connections, student to student, staff to student, really looking at connections over content. And that, as we reflect on this particular year, walking through the door, not knowing what to expect and so forth, really ensuring that, that sense of belonging that is typically here and is here, but really looking to cement that day one and continuing that throughout the year. Feel really good about handing this over to Mr. Lawrence and team, and we'll continue that good work over the next few weeks. As it is the season of transition, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention we have 5 members who are retiring this year, and Karen Raymond in our math department, and Andrea Merritt in our health and PE department, Laurie Mazaka, who left mid-year science, Dara Johnson in our PE, she's been our department head, and Sharon Tian, the face of the building in the front office. All wonderful educators, wonderful staff, and I just wanted to thank them personally for their work in providing not only for the students and the families, but also their expertise and the generosity with their time, and really contributing to they will be impacting students long after they're gone, and sometimes they're not. And we wanted to recognize that. It's been my privilege to work with them and the entire staff here in the community. Those staff members were celebrated at a retirement party, and last day of school, half day. Typically there's an ice cream party where the staff will get together and really honor the people who are leaving. As Mr. Smith mentioned, we have to replace these folks, and you really can't with the experience. However, just wanted to thank our staff, our department leaders, as we worked to develop context and really attributes that we wanted to see in their new teammates, and really look and involve members beyond the department to provide different lenses for candidates coming through the door. Each one of our teaching candidates has also done a demonstration lesson here. Sometimes we've brought them back for 2 or 3, because putting adults in front of your children is the most important thing that we do. I feel quite good about the staff that we're hiring, and looking forward to having a really good start to the school year. In terms of our students, as I shared with you, our staff are working diligently to carve out time so we get them outside, and those typical end of the year activities. For our 8th graders, as they transition to the high school, this is a very big week for them. Starting tomorrow, they're off on 3 days of adventures, culminating with the dance on Friday night, And it actually kicked off this afternoon where they were in the auditorium to see a viewing of The Wizard of Oz, movie from 1939, still a classic, but that sets them up to for the play at the Opera House, Wicked, that they'll see on Thursday, which I've seen and I'm jealous. I would love to see again. And our 8th graders also have a few other opportunities as they transition. This week, as they're out of the building, we will be bringing up our 5th graders as well from Pine Hill and Chickering, and just proud of the work and attention done between administration, counselors, special education staff, teaching staff, coaches. Really put a lot of, really feel good about the connections made as we're bringing up our 5th grade, soon to be 6th grade students. So we're looking forward to having them with juice boxes and water, which is important. And that's what I have for my update right here.
Yeah. Have you filled all the positions of the educators who are retiring?
We have.
Okay.
We have outstanding. We have a .2 PE position and a .6 art position. And so but our folks, we're working on those right now.
So you're working on those too?
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
Absolutely.
Great. Any other comments and questions? Angie?
Just wanted to thank you, Dr. Tiano, for stepping in and doing a wonderful job. I have a middle schooler, a 7th grader, and I would never hear anything that was going on that was controversial or bad. So to me, it was a very successful year. So that was great. The only thing he did lament about today was he was talking about the 5th graders coming up, and he was the 5th grade COVID kid. He goes, I never really got to tour. I just kind of went in for half,
I know.
But he said, but my whole 6th grade year, it was really kind of an introduction because it was half in, half out. But anyway, I just wanted to thank you, and we really appreciate you keeping us on the right track and leaving us in a good position.
I greatly appreciate that. It's truly been my pleasure, and I've learned a lot being here this year, and we'll take these experiences with me.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what Angie said, that as an 8th grade parent, the kids didn't get to go to DC, we all know that, but very excited to, in fact, I printed out the itinerary and let's get the string bag and the water bottle ready for tomorrow. Charlie's very excited. I'm probably gonna have to make him go to the dance, but that will be fun. So anyway, no, special thanks, because it's been a tricky year with all of that and figuring out the end of the year stuff. So thank you.
My pleasure.
Yeah, I just add, it's very exciting. I've got a 9th grader who missed out on, some of the middle school stuff. So seeing a lot of the academic pieces that you're revisiting and the extracurricular offerings, and hearing a bit about what happens for the 8th graders and even the 5th graders coming into their 6th grade visit. I think it's just wonderful news to see all of that come back together, and just for the community vertically to kind of get connected as well.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks. We're going to miss you, and we wish you good luck. Remind me where you're going.
I'm going to Ludlow Public Schools.
That's well, enjoy.
Thank you.
They're lucky to have you.
Appreciate that.
All right. Warrant report.
Yes, you have in your packet the warrants that have been processed since the last time you met. And again, thank Judy for staying with it with the signer. I do have a folder here for you if you want to stay after tonight. Otherwise, we can meet up tomorrow. Again, for Mark, Mark was our signer in Dover. So you might have a logical segue there. And it's much easier, Mark, to sign for the region than it is for our Dover. So I felt like I should pass along that information. I'll roll right into the monthly financial report. So you have your fiscal year 22 status of appropriations and revenue as of June 2nd. I did June 2nd because, as you can see, we did process a warrant. It's just good to have the most accurate data that I can share. There's not a lot of new information to talk about as far as variances. We have spent a little bit more money, so if you flip over and look at your pro forma of the roll forward of E&D, I think your last report, it was looking like we had a negative 11,000 that we were going to be under E&D. Obviously, we spent a little bit more. We're looking at about 138,000, so we for sure will be under our 5% of E&D. So the towns have gotten used to giving money back. There will be no money back this year. One big piece of that is the use of money for capital. So that is one thing I am bringing forward to you this evening. Before I jump to capital, a couple other things just in your monthly report. We went ahead and did a projected special revenue and revolving funds as of June 30th, just so you don't have to wait until September 30th to see that. Just you can have it over the summer just to see where those funds land. And we've also, for all three school committees, put together sort of a summary of where the ESSER funds have been spent to date. We've been talking about the ESSER 1, the ESSER 2, the ESSER 3. ESSER 1 did need to be spent by June 30th of this year. And so it was a smaller grant, $37,000, so it has been expended at the region. A big piece of that was testing and assessment. That's where Panorama that we've been talking about was charged for fiscal year 22. We've also extended our subscription to Zoom, which from a district basis is about $13,000, so $6,200 of that was the region's portion. We had some COVID-related nursing staff hours this summer. And we also did some SPED summer services that were sort of not in our normal course, so we charged them to the grant, and also some additional SPED psych evals, which you'll also see is where we spent for ESSER 2, so SEL. SEL had at least a $10,000 services, at least $10,000 in the ESSER 2, so we've exceeded that thus far. And the rest of that grant right now is sort of earmarked for additional educational support, although we can do budget amendments as the world changes and we come up with other things. When we filed ESSER 3, as you remember, that was a grant that we filed for in the fall. We knew at that point that the high school needed some technology, so the Chromebooks went into that budget, which you'll see the expense for that. And then we are doing some additional speech language pathology evaluations and some additional guidance support in the middle school that was unplanned. And so we've been able to access the grant to pay for that. So you have some nice balances remaining. ESSER 2, we have still $135,000 and almost $250,000 for ESSER 3. ESSER 2 needs to be spent by the end of next year, and then we have until September of 24 for ESSER 3. So we know that Panorama is going to get charged to that. We know there's some things that we're continuing that are extras that will be charged to this grant, but we also have some flexibility for things that come up. We talked to Dover. They questioned about testing, so the state's not doing sort of the free test and the testing program that they have done for most of this year and some of last year. And so if we need, we're going to have money to be able to go purchase those tests for our students and staff. So it's nice to know that we have that to fall back on, in addition to just bringing additional staff on if we need it for continuing SEL, additional compensatory services to get our students back up. Because it's still been a transition year. We're not, as you know, back to where we'd hope to be. So it's nice to have these funds there to support that without having to worry about what it's doing to our general fund budget.
Thank you.
Any questions on sort of the monthly report before I jump into capital? Okay, so if you remember back when we did the 5-year capital plan, we did present to you a bunch of several other projects that we knew that we were going to use E&D for. So we went out in March, we had the IMA finally approved everywhere, and so the roofing project actually is going to start on June 23rd. So we're really excited about that. We've already had our pre-construction meetings. Pretty soon you'll probably see the trailer of all the materials are getting delivered and be over in the high school parking lot. We have a great plan for that, so that will be up and running. But we had a couple of other projects that we knew were on our plan, but we needed to do additional work on them, so that I've learned that you just can't take the number from Onsite Insight for some of these larger projects. If you remember the EMS, I walked in and we had $150,000, and then when we really explored and I had an engineering study done, I had to come back and ask you for $300,000 more. So I didn't want to do that with these projects. So we did hire GG&D, an engineering firm who it's been successful in working with us. We were first introduced to them with the air conditioning installation at Chickering, and I've enjoyed working with them. So they did our EMS specs, and they came in and looked at all of our boilers and gave us an assessment of our needs and gave us a price estimate of the most efficient and energy savings setup that we can do. So the number that they gave me includes also their project costs, which is sometimes something that we forget to add in. So the number we're bringing forward to you for the boilers is $350,000. That's a little bit higher than what we were covering, having an on-site insight, which I think was like 240, but they're taking us a little step further from just doing the boilers to doing some of the pumps and such that will give us the energy efficiency that will make that replacement even more worthwhile for the district. So I think it's going to be money well spent. We will continue to work with the towns. We've been definitely working with Dorothea and Gino on green community, other ways that we can replace our things in a more sustainability focus. But I think that I was happy with what GG&D did, and we will probably queue this up to be ready to roll out next year, but it'll take us time to get the bidding, and we'll see what COVID does in that arena. But that we want to go ahead and earmark those funds. The second item is the classroom floors. We had high school floors already on the original schedule. What we decided to do is to complete all the rooms in the world language, social studies, and English wing, so that we had that one completely done. So with that, that price tag went up to $85,000, but that will have that wing completely switched over with the new flooring. As you know, we've been talking about doing the security system upgrade in Lenquist. That was a NEASC recommendation, and so that is a project of $30,000. They've been out and are ready to get that project started. We're going to try to coordinate that with them being in first, because the roofing project is going to start at the middle school and work their way. So if they can get done, then we won't have people tripping over each other. The couple other things that we talked about back in January when we brought your first plan was the classroom dividing wall in the middle school. We want to hold that for further space evaluations. As we were having the contractors come in for that room, it was starting to become really expensive because the way that room's laid out and the way the HVAC equipment is, it was becoming almost, it wasn't making sense to do. I think some of the changes that may be happening in the schedule could also free up some classrooms if we schedule differently. So we didn't want to go forward. It was getting up to almost $40,000. So I think what we've talked about this, what makes more sense is to, when we can get a little more settled, probably just do a space feasibility audit here and make sure we're using all these spaces in tune with 21st century learning spaces. So we've taken that off of the request for next year, as well as GG&D told us that the pump house boiler that was on your plan still has life in it, and there's no reason to replace that at this time. So it was well worth the time that we took between March, when you approved your final plan, and now, and knowing that we were going to use E&D, we just had to make sure you approved it by June 30th, because just for E&D purposes, once we roll over to July 1st, we lose access to that money until we get recertified. And so this is the time to make those decisions. So we're bringing forward requests for $465,000 to be transferred from your E&D balance to the region's capital fund.
All right, any questions, comments regarding the capital projects?
And I apologize if you have already told us this at some point. The space audit at the middle school, is that like on the calendar, or is it something that's not?
No,
yet?
we'll have to,
We're
explore. Yeah, I think it's something worthwhile doing before we invest in another dividing wall in that
Right.
room. So once we get settled a little bit, we'll start looking for consulting groups that do that.
Okay.
And get that coordinated. It's something though that we can cover in our maintenance reserve. So it's something that'll queue us up for capital, so we can cover that in our operating budget as an operating expense.
Okay, great. And I think it's on the improvement plan. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any others? I'm grateful you're doing that and thinking through the HVAC. I've experienced classrooms that had temporary walls in them, that then the heat is here and the thermostat there. It's a bad plan, so thank you. I hope that can make do with these kind of things. All right, if there are no further questions, I'd like to invite a motion to transfer $465,000 of June 30, 2021 certified excess and deficiency funds to the Region's Capital Fund to cover costs for approved fiscal year 23 capital projects as presented?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Lynn. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Perfect, thank
Motion
you.
carries unanimously. All right, next item on our agenda is the approval of the 22-23 student handbooks for both the high school and the middle school. This would be our second read of both the handbooks, and last time that we met, we were able to hear sort of a summary of what those changes were. Mr. Smith, are there any other additional changes or anything other than what we discussed?
No, there are not.
Okay. So is there any discussion about the high school handbook changes? I know, Mark, those would be new for you perhaps.
It's all right. I took a look before this evening.
Okay. All right, and how about for the middle school? Any discussion or questions?
Regarding the proposed changes for the interim reports,
Yes.
we're going to keep our interim reports. We went back, we worked with our staff, and being able to find, the consistency from Google Classroom and so forth.
Yeah.
That's a longer process to be able to do that. So to have our interim reports in place, speaking with Ms. McCoy in terms of aligning the middle school, perhaps instead of 8 reporting periods, reducing that down to 4, similar to our elementary and our high school as well. So we will stick with the reporting.
Yep.
So we'll remove those lines, if you will.
Okay. Okay. So, any other further questions? All right. So I'd like to invite a motion to approve the 22-23 student handbooks for both the middle school and the high school with the changes as explained from Dr. Tiano on middle school handbook.
So moved.
Kate Potter, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Lynn, thank you. Any questions, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the work on those handbooks. It's all, it's quite an undertaking, and you guys made some really thoughtful changes. Next up, we have the approval of school improvement plans. These are also a second read. We went through them last time that we met. Any changes, Mr. Smith, from what we discussed last time?
No, there are not. Sure.
Okay. Questions or comments about the second read? All right. Thank you both for doing that work, especially Dr. Tiano, where you're handing it over to a new team. I think it's a good starting point, certainly for them. Do I have a motion to approve the school improvement plans for both the middle school and the high school for the 22-23 school year?
So moved.
Thank you, Angie. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Judy. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Great.
Thank you.
Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck. These are good ways to improve. Next on the item, we have the consent agenda. It includes a description of donations that were received, as well as asking us to reappoint. The donations received primarily for 2 scholarship funds, an author visit, as well as a variety of coaches for the spring sports teams for assistance. It also asks us to reappoint John LaFleche, who we met earlier tonight, as the treasurer for the regional school district for the 22-23 school year, and asks us to approve the minutes of our last meeting. Are there any questions or comments about any of the items on the consent agenda? Lynn?
How did the volunteer coach donations relate to the changes we made and how we compensate assistant
So it'll be for next
coaches?
year. So this is the finish of the volunteer coaches. They'll all be in the Appendix C next year, so you won't see the donations.
So
Because all the coaches will be paid through the general fund because we approve funds for them to be in Appendix C.
yeah,
It starts in the fall of 22. So
Oh,
these are spring coaches that are in this year that we're finishing up.
got it.
Yeah, I had the same
Got it.
question. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have to
Okay.
finish up the spring, we'll start the fall, you won't see those donations anymore going forward.
Excellent, thank you.
Other questions? I want to make a comment that it sounds like John has done a wonderful job as the treasurer in the past year. He seems to have taken a much more active role and feel really positively. Do you also, is your
Oh,
office?
absolutely.
Yeah.
He's been great to work with. He was a former superintendent, so he's a valuable resource for questions, and so we pick his brain sometimes, and it's nice to have him. He comes in at least twice a month and is in the office with us, so it's a nice relationship.
Fantastic. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Lynn. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Kate. Any discussion? All in favor? Fantastic. Next on the agenda is just communications. Specifically, wanted to point out the class of 2022 matriculation report as it was available at the time of printing, as well as minutes from the Dover and Sherborn School Committee meetings. Just, for myself, for the comment on that, it's really exciting to me to see our graduates going to so many different schools. I loved not seeing like 10 kids going to one place, and just the variety. It really speaks to the goals that we've set forth through Challenge Success and other initiatives with the guidance staff to get our kids to look at schools that are really a wide representation of the opportunities available. So thanks to the guidance folks and to all the team that has done that work. It's really exciting.
And if I may, Ms. Sharon, thanks to DSEF as well for their continued support in allowing our counselors to go and visit these various colleges and universities to get some insight. So to have that firsthand knowledge of the school to then match it up with a student. So thanks to DSEF.
Yeah, it's really exciting. Any other comments?
I thought it was fun to read also, yeah.
It was, right? I looked some up. But just, especially some of the schools that have specific things you go to do, whether it's a technical opportunity or programs that's only available at that one place. It's really exciting that our students.
One of the things I think I'm excited too is our students are looking at Canada. In the past, kids have looked at the UK, and I think that those are also great opportunities too, that sometimes with families for their own citizenship, there's lots of different creative options, and our students are taking advantage of those opportunities, and that's great. Absolutely.
It's really exciting. And then lastly, on the communications are the list of subcommittee assignments for us. We haven't discussed those yet, so if members can take a look at what was on the docket for last year and let me know if you would like to continue in that role or if you would like somebody else to take that. We can put out, just a very simple communication to fill those slots. And if there's still things to be filled, we can certainly talk about them again next time that we meet. Does that work for you guys in terms of getting the subcommittees filled in the next couple weeks? Okay. Fantastic. Well, if that is it. Yes. Very exciting. Our last item on the agenda is to adjourn. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Can I say one thing?
Yeah.
I just want to say one thing. I just want to thank Kate for chairing this last year. You really were, it was wonderful to work with you. And I bet you'll be happy.
It'll sleep a little better tonight.
Yeah, exactly.
And I have to thank Lynn because many things that I didn't understand, she understood. I thought it was a good combo. Lots of legal help. Yeah.
I'm glad you said that, Judy, because I call them the A-team.
Yeah.
They were just wonderful, always available, whether it was this planning of this meeting or our joint meetings, which we had a number of them this year. So we just put in a lot of hard work. Thank you, really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Deeply appreciative to both of you that you left.
Yeah,
And
particularly in a pandemic
Yes.
year.
Yes. Well, we'll Judy and I will try to be a B team.
A- team.
Yeah. Okay, A+. We don't have A+ as a Dover-Sherborn. We don't do that.
Yeah.
But we will certainly try and fill your
Yeah.
shoes. And I also appreciate the grace and just the care that you put into this work, both of you this year.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, it's a
Well, thank
group
you.
effort.
Yes. Hopefully we'll have less large.
Just less.
Just less.
Hiring things to do, that would be certainly lovely.
Yeah.
All right, with that, thank you for adding that important note. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, and second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thanks.
Thank you.